about us right now, girl, where you going? It's about us right now, girl, where you going? I'm with you.
What is the deal, beautiful people? It's your boy Ramon. Let's talk about the iPhone 7 and of course the iPhone 7 Plus, because it is that time of year when Apple releases the madness for the holiday. There's always something interesting when reviewing an Apple product, iPad or iPhone, that we kind of don't do when we review other phones, and you don't get as nerdy with the specs, right? So for instance, I could say that this guy does have this new A10 processor that has 2 cores. It's a quad core processor, but 2 cores sort of operate the phone in low power mode, and then there's another 2 cores that are just balls to the wall powerful when needed. So the phone has the ability to sort of decide when to kick it up into the higher 2 cores. But other than that, for the day-to-day stuff, it's operating on 2 low-powered cores to save you battery life, to save you the stress of having to run to a charger. And I could tell you that this guy has 2 gigs of RAM, or is it 3? I think the Plus has 3, but it never really matters, because when you sort of use this phone, when you get into the experience of iOS 10, it's always snappy, right? And I think that's the genius in Apple's decision to make the hardware, make the software, and make it their duty to really optimize both to work hand in hand to protect the experience. When reviewing Android phones, Windows phones, whatever it is, we don't really have that luxury. You know, these things are often over-spec'd to compensate for the fact that they're doing more. But I mean, with Apple, it's always been a really good synergy between their hardware and their software, and everything just works. New to the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus this year is the omission of the 16 gigabyte model. People get on your couches, stand on your housetop roofs, clap. This is indeed something that I think should have been done a long time ago, and I'm happy to see Apple do it here. A lot of people, to save money, will always go with the cheaper version of a phone, and they don't quite understand what that means. You know, these phones, they shoot pretty high resolution images, especially now Apple really gave the developers the ability to shoot RAW with the iPhone 7 camera, and we'll get into that later. And then, you know, this thing shoots 4K at 30 frames a second. If you buy a 16 gigabyte version of a phone like this, you'd be out of space in no time. And that's often what happens. You know, people listen to podcasts, people download YouTube videos if they have a YouTube Red subscription. You've got your Spotify music downloaded on there, your iTunes, Apple Music, whatever it is. 16 gigs was quite frankly, a disservice to the consumer, and I'm happy to see them get rid of it. So what replaces 16 gig, you may ask? A 32 gig model. Then we have 128, and then the balls to the wall versions of 256. That's a lot of space. You know, with 256, I think that's enough space where you can say, all right, I don't need an expandable storage, because I can just buy the biggest one possible and be good for another year or so. And yeah, you know you're going to pay out the ass for it too, so just don't act surprised when it happens. There's then the elephant in the room with the lack of a headphone jack, a 35mm jack. These guys said they had the courage to remove it. This is Apple's MO. You know, they've been doing things like this for years, removing floppy drives, removing CD drives, and people just sort of get over it, right? And this time I'm sort of on board with Apple, and I know there's a huge culture out there, the kids, pass the aux cord, son, let me get this Young Thug on there. You know, that's a real thing. And sure, a lot of headphones you buy out there with your professional audio, the audiophiles or audiophites, whatever they call themselves, they need this stuff. You know, they're phones that are being sold by the competitors with onboard DACs, and they really support higher frequency hardware. You're talking, somebody goes out there and spends $800 for a headphone. they can take advantage of it with a phone like the V20. But with Apple, it's just always been the regular auxiliary, the regular 35mm jack. So when you remove it, you look to something like Bluetooth. You know, it's not a big deal. And furthermore, Apple has been including a dongle with each phone sold that converts the Lightning adapter into that 35mm input. And the problem here, of course, you can't listen to music and charge it at the same time. Yet again, there is an adapter for about $40 or $50 out there that lets you do both. Whatever. It is something bold to do. It is something that not Apple alone is doing. There are other companies on the market that's doing this, like Motorola. I don't find it to be a big deal, and you know, I'm gonna take the high ground here. If this is a big deal for you, just don't buy the iPhone 7. Stay where you're at. And it sucks to hear that, but that's the reality of this situation. On the topic of headphones, they're pushing this new wireless AirPods, and the tech around this is dope. Although I think it looks quite silly hanging out of people's ears, and I don't like the default AirPods anyway, but whatever. It's a feature, it's there, something you should look at. On the phone itself, there are the stereo speakers, and you know what? They can get away with calling them stereo speakers because there are two of them, but they are placed in a rather peculiar place. So you've got the microphone, that tall slit to the top. That's where your left speaker will be, depending on how you hold the phone. And then on the bottom, the left grill is actually where the other speaker is. It does sound okay. I don't have any quarrels with the quality of the speakers. It sounds better than the 6S and the 6, but it doesn't sound as amazing as something like we've seen from HTC with the boom sound, but it's fine. They've done some work to the display. Disappointingly enough, it's still 1080p on both the iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus, but according to Apple, it's 25% brighter, and they've also improved the color gamut, so you get a lot more color information. You know, the warms are more warm, the colds are more cold, the colors pop a little more. And I really think they're pushing the boundary on what IPS displays can do. But from using the phone day to day, it does look a little better. The pixel density is fine. I will say I do notice a difference going back and forth from something like my Nexus 6P that has a 2K display versus something like a 1080p, but by no means is this a problem for the iPhone. It looks as good as any other iPhone, or it looks the best that an iPhone has ever looked, actually. So that's fine. Another blockbuster change on the iPhone 7 outside of the headphone jack, and there's about two more, I would say, but this one in particular is they took out the mechanical home button. This is interesting how they did this. So the button is not a physical button. It doesn't actually move. With the aid of the haptic feedback engine that's now in the phone, it simulates a button press. It feels a little weird at first, and then after about 10-15 minutes, you just sort of adjust. And the thing about the haptic engine, it doesn't only work on the Touch ID or the home button itself, but it's well balanced throughout the entire phone. So let's say you drop down a notification curtain, the phone kind of vibrates a little bit, and it gives the phone this nice weight, this nice depth to the notifications, and even the vibrations when the phones ring in. It feels different. I think it's dope. It's definitely something that you should feel for yourself. Get to an Apple store, Best Buy, wherever you buy your Apple devices, and sort of feel it out and see if you like it. But it works, and it's something that will fade to the background over time. You'll just get used to it, and it's one more part that you don't have to replace, right? So that's okay. I think that's fine as well. Then we come to the waterproofing. So the first two things were the removal of the headphone jack, the removal of the physical home button. According to Apple, these were things that they had to do in order to waterproof this phone. I'm not angry. I'm not really mad at that at all. I've seen tons of YouTube videos with people doing non-scientific and scientific tests, jumping in and out of pools and lakes with with their iPhones, and the thing, it works. It is waterproof. I don't expect to go scuba diving with this thing, but you know, it is accident prone. And I have also seen videos where there's been some condensation built up in the camera or under the screen, so that's something to watch out for. And even in their fine print, Apple does warn about water damage, which sort of is ironic and leaves a bad taste in some people's mouths. Don't sell me something that you say is water resistant to a certain amount, and then when it actually gets damaged, you tell me, well, it's not covered. That's a little scumbaggish. But I do want to applaud them for this. I think when you look at the landscape of devices sold, Apple is still dominating the smartphone industry. And to be able to remove such a liability in the design and a lot of the accidents that will happen is a huge plus for consumers. People cook with their phone next to them and it gets splashed with all types of madness. People drop their phones in water. People drop their phones in the street when it's raining. Like, these things happen. And this is one less thing to worry about. That too, I think, is fine. My favorite part of any phone, and always the iPhone, is the camera. Apple's been doing dope stuff with the cameras from seemingly day one. I think the iPhone 4 was the first one, and we really sat up straight and go, whoa, they're killing it. That's their thing, is the camera. So what do they do new here? The front-facing camera is a 7 megapixel camera. That will do wonders for your selfie game, your Snapchat world. Why not? There's a new 12 megapixel camera at the back. The iPhone 7 has that one lens. The iPhone 7 Plus has a second lens, and that second lens is also 12 megapixels, but the difference is Apple is saying it's a telephoto lens. It's not. In actuality, the first lens of 20 is 28 millimeter equivalent. The second is a 56 millimeter equivalent. That's not considered telephoto by any means in a photography world. It's actually closer to a wide angle lens than anything, but whatever. They doubled the focal length. I see where they're coming from with the telephoto. I had some interesting thoughts on this, and it took me back to my Lumia days where Microsoft came out with the 1020, or that was Nokia at the time, and that guy had 43 megapixels. And what that would do is it would capture an insane amount of detail and then downsample it into a what was essentially a 12 megapixel image. Now, the other side of that technology was what Nokia was calling a lossless zoom, and that was the ability to recall all of the data that was captured in that 43 megapixel image and crop any part of it and then have it downsampled again. So it was a digital zoom for sure, but it had the ability to re-engineer the photo, then sort of put it back together when maintaining the structural integrity and the detail of the image. I thought that was dope. Apple, their version of that is to just put another lens on the back and have it double the focal length of the first, so you get to zoom in immediately, and it really is a 2 times optical zoom, and then it can go, of course, up to 10x. And my tip for you guys is, do not zoom in with your do not do digital zoom with these cameras. They look horrible. By no means should you ever do that. Just take the image with the 2x crop and then physically or manually crop in the image to get what you want. But my point here is, I don't know if this is the best execution for the concept they want, where they want you to get in closer. You look at the dual lens thing. It's been done before with HTC and a Huawei, and none of them really did it right. And I feel like you go to the great lengths to put another lens on the back of a camera, and the pictures really don't come out any better, then what's the point? And we're looking at this same thing here with the iPhone 7 Plus. Sure, you can get in closer with the second lens, but why not just move your feet? Why not just hold your hand closer? And in terms of the image, it's sort of the same image quality. I would have preferred to see them stick with that single lens, but instead of making it 12 megapixel, double it, make it 24 megapixel, so that you can then in post crop it and zoom in a lot farther. I thought that would have been a much better way to get ahead of that. And also going back to the camera, I've been having, I would say, moderate success when doing some photography with the iPhone. If I'm just taking pictures and sort of just editing them in Snapseed, putting them on Instagram, you get some amazing shots. But Apple made they made raw images a thing here, and I didn't like their execution of it. So they did give you the ability to shoot raw, but the default Apple camera app doesn't support it. So you have to use something like Lightroom, or ProCam is the app I've been using. It's a $5 app, and it's just not Apple to me. You know, you don't give an option but have the user go out and buy a piece of software to do it. That's not Apple to me. That's not what they're used to. But that is it is what it is here. But when trying to use these raw files, I've not been happy with the raw files. I've been seeing crazy amounts of noise, and it's just I don't know, there's something about the raw files, and I need to do some more research. I'm definitely gonna do an episode of Aperture where I focus in a lot more on these raw files and see what's happening. But so far I'm not happy with the raw files. I'm okay with the camera, it's fine. In terms of one or two things I don't like about the iPhone, there isn't much. I mean, it's an iPhone, the design is fine, the specs are fine, you get what you expect from a new iPhone. But there are two very little nuisances, I would call them. One is the raw thing that I mentioned. I don't want to fumble around with this app. I just want to be able to toggle in the default Apple app raw and just have that be that. And the second is, this thing shoots 4K video, but I have a 1080p screen, so I can't really appreciate the video that I'm shooting on the device that I'm shooting it with. So that bothers me a little bit. But all in all, you know, a word I've been using throughout this review is fine. I think the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 7 Plus is fine. The design's okay. It's not a major change. The camera hump's bigger, yes, on both phones, but we got some new colors, a piano black, a matte black. You see me with the matte black hair. The experience is the same. It's faster than ever. They got rid of the 16 gigabyte version. They got rid of the headphone jack, angered some people. You know, it's the waterproofing's a big deal. The haptic feedback is dope. I think it's all fine. I don't think it's anything to move the needle in terms of the iPhone world. You know, if you own an iPhone 6 and you don't feel like upgrading, you're not missing out on much. If you own an iPhone 6s, there's even less of a reason for you to upgrade. But that's okay. You know, this is the Apple that we now know. This little by little, bit by bit. But I think it's fine. I think the experience, when all things considered, put together, and the decisions made here on the iPhone 7 makes it the best iPhone yet. And I know Apple says that every conference, but there's a lot that's happening here that almost triple or quadruple what happened on the 6S and then the 6. So, you know, it's fine. It's fine. It's a lot more exciting things on the market, but if you're in the iOS world, then you'll be okay. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for checking out our review. Hit the like button if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Plenty more content coming. My name is Ramon. I'm out of here. Peace.